Local Transportation Commission to order. And we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Gitlin, would you mind leading us?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gitlin. Well, it's not on the agenda. Susan, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Commissioner Fallman,
Here.
Commissioner Gitlin,
Here.
Commissioner Hemmingson,
Here.
Commissioner Kine. Here. Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Chair Short,
Yes.
Policy
Here.
Advisor Member Tucker.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We'll move on to the public comment period. Anyone wishing to make public comments regarding matters either on or off the agenda and within the Commission's jurisdiction may do so at this time. However, the Commission is not permitted to act on non-agenda items. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm John Murders. I think many of you know me. I want to bring something to your attention, and hopefully you can take some action at a future meeting. About 2 weeks ago, I was making a left off of State Route 197 onto US 199 by the Hayuchi Bridge. And I thought I looked both ways and it's clear. And I was partway through onto the highway, and all of a sudden, here comes a vehicle from the left. I floored it and made it through. But it was a dark vehicle against the dark background, and you know, in the shadows and all that. So I've been thinking probably would help to make 199 a headlights on daylight headlights section, you know, from 101 all the way up to the Oregon border. So I'm just bringing this to your attention. I don't know who has to do what, but I'm here to ask you to pursue this.
John? Chair, can I see clarification real
Certainly.
quick? Can you describe it again? So this vehicle is traveling southbound on 199, turning right onto 197?
No, this vehicle I see was heading southbound on 199 and continuing on towards Crescent City. And I was turning left off of 197 onto 199 northbound.
Okay. Got it. And you couldn't see him?
Yeah, I didn't notice him until, I was, like I said, partway into the intersection. Like I said, I floored it and made it through, but
Okay. That intersection's pretty fatal.
okay. So,
I go through it every night, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
so maybe you can get this done. I don't know who has
Yeah.
to do what. But
Chair, I think if we actually try to agendize this for a future meeting, I think it would be wise, and we could have probably more detailed discussion and see what Caltrans knows.
yeah,
But it's an issue for me on, almost on a weekly basis. I
Okay,
know
yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, like I said, I know you can't, it's off, not on the agenda now, but I want to hopefully get the ball rolling. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any other public comment?
All you gotta do is see the pile of broken glass there.
Okay. I guess we'll close public comment at this time and move into our closed session. Apparently we have one case, conference with legal counsel.
You want to go to closed session?
Okay. back into open session. Susan, let the record show that there is no reportable actions out of closed session. Okay, we'll adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee and move on to the consent agenda. We have minutes of July 12th, 2017, the SAFE Annual Report, and a resolution number 2017-13.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll pull the vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, Susan. Moving on to Policy and Administrative Section, adopt the Active Transportation Plan 2017 update. Tamara?
At the county's request, we initiated an update to our active transportation plan. The information that they needed to have included in the document is there. In addition to that, we have moved a project. Now, let me find my staff report. Sorry, I'm buried in my own agenda. That appears on page 65 of the paper, 75 of the PDF document. And that's moving the Hayuchi Flat Trail to the Focus Project area from the section down below, which was other important projects, I believe we titled it. And we're doing that at the recommendation of the TAC and at the request of one of our local nonprofits. They're really putting a lot of effort into getting that Hayuchi Flat Trail funded, and it's my recommendation and the TAC's recommendation that we include that in the Focus Project area. Other than the included county areas, a little bit of minor errata and moving that one section. Those are, for the most part, the changes in the update. In some of the project areas, I've put a 2017 update if a project has been funded or made significant progress. I've noted that in the document just to reflect where we are to date, but this is by no means a complete overhaul of the document. I would consider it a minor update.
Thank you, Chairman. Any comments or questions from the committee? Go right ahead.
This is the trail that the Redwood National Parks is from the campground to almost to Hayuchi Hamlet?
Firehouse.
Exactly, yes.
To the firehouse, yeah. And who's the local nonprofit?
It's Smith River Alliance, and Patty McCleary is here. She might be able to answer some additional questions if you had them, but I can also answer questions.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have any public comment about the update? Seeing no public go, we are going to have public comment.
Oh, I might as well.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to express my interest in supporting the Park Service in the construction of the trail. It's been a long time coming. The plans are about 98% complete. We see that the cost to implement the trail, to construct it, would be less than $100,000. And the park, will mostly self-fund that. But we will assist them if there were any shortfall, because we really would like to see that trail completed. So thank you so much. If your new plan does include these changes and this trail is more highly ranked, we would appreciate that very much. That would be very useful. It will help us and inspire them to get that done. Questions?
Well, is this just a pedestrian trail, or they're not going to have bicycle? There's no bicycle. I think that was originally I think the plan was to have a bicycle trail, and then they cut it back to a pedestrian trail.
It was
So that's a
originally.
little disappointing, is all.
Well, I think the cultural compliance, the additional cost to excavate and do cultural compliance, that added $1 million to the 0.9 mile distance. And so the park at this time is only able to conceptualize it as a pedestrian trail. But we got to get started, Jerry. Getting started is good.
Yeah, I don't know about the gotta part, but I understand.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comment about the update? Okay, bring it back to the committee. We have a motion to adopt.
Also move a motion to adopt and
Thank you, Mr.
the active transportation. I'm sorry, is that? Yes, motion to adopt transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Gitlin. Do we have a second? Second? Motion has been seconded. Can we pull the vote, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the county's request for $10,000 for Klamath Beach Road project scoping. Tamara?
The county is well on its way to securing federal lands access program funding for their Klamath Beach Road project. The federal agency is requiring an up to $10,000 to complete the scoping documents. Our planning, programming, and monitoring funds is the only fund source that we have that's eligible to assist with this. So the county is specifically, well, I am specifically recommending, and I think the county was more general in its request, they said very specifically, planning, programming, and monitoring funds to help support this project. And the TAC makes this recommendation also. It's a real good deal for the community. I mean, we're putting in a very, very minor amount of money in relation to the grant that the county is in the process of securing for this.
Chair, move to adopt Resolution 2017-14 for the request of $10,000 for the Klamath Beach Road project
Second.
scoping.
Motion to adopt the resolution has been made and seconded. Is there any public comment about this resolution? Seeing no public comment, we'll move back and pull the vote.
Chair.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to first on compliance contract for transportation emergency planning.
This is a basic scope of work attached to our standard contract language. This work was initiated by Cindy Henderson with the Office of Emergency Services. She's requested that our transit agencies, our transportation providers in the community, that includes the school district, transit, anybody who has a transit resource, so Coastline Enterprises, another group who participates in this training, to come together and update their transportation emergency preparedness. In emergency preparedness, transportation is always emergency support function 1. First, you have to move people in, people out. In our case, it's most often people out of inundation zone is what we've had, people out of a fire area. But this has come up, even in the last month. This request started last winter, and we've been, we put it in the work program, and we're moving forward with it. So this contract will become a sole source contract. It's not a large contract, but it will become a sole source contract at the request of County OES to work with a contractor who's been to our community and has provided similar training probably 5 to 7 times over the last 10 years. So he knows our community, he knows the resources, he knows Ms. Henderson, he knows some of the transit folks, although we have had a lot of turnover over the years with transit. So just, for your knowledge, it's a lot of paperwork in the file, but not anything specific that is at the board level. So I'll be doing a lot of paperwork to support the sole source contract, and I wanted to note that in the public meeting.
Very good, Tamara. These are the trainings like we saw, I believe, maybe the last one was centered at the fairgrounds with the mass casualty incident and where the transit was involved with.
They're similar to
moving
that, but
people
this will
out.
be very transportation specific. So, so it really, There will be a training and then a tabletop exercise, and it will focus on the transportation component only. So when transportation participates in the countywide, that's important, but they also need to have their own area really solid. So everybody has their own area for, this is ESF 1, and they get their own parties really collaborating well, working together, communicating well, on the same page, what do we do when, kind of thing. And so when they jump into that larger group, they've got their own game plan going.
Very good. Thank you, Tamara. Do we have any public comment about this item on the agenda?
Hi. And one aspect of emergency planning that came to my attention recently is I've been
Mr. Chair, would you
looking
have the
over...
speaker just identify yourself for the record?
What's that?
He's right. Would you
Just
mind?
identify your name for the record. Speak your name. And then
Just identify yourself, please.
I'm sorry.
Say your name.
Say your name for the record.
This is my problem with hearing. It's getting worse. Eileen Cooper. Okay, so this thing works really well, and I appreciate it very much. And I appreciate effort to get other speaking systems to use throughout other meeting rooms, which is an item that is coming up. So I very much appreciate the attention to that. But onto this emergency. Planning, it came to my attention recently in looking over tsunami, inundation, and the maps around the harbor. And the route that people have to take, that you have mapped out on the little maps to get to a safe zone from the harbor, they're not going to make it. It's a very long, you have to go all the way down from the harbor over to Elk Valley Road and then up. And then that's first up. They have to go into the most dangerous spot, Elk Valley Road area, close to Elk Creek, and then follow that road up. If people are on foot, they're not going to make it. I don't know what you can do to save lives in that harbor, but that's not good enough. And so take a look at that. I think of this because there's open space in front of the harbor. I don't know, so what you could do about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Okay, seeing no more public comment, we'll bring it back to the committee. We have let's see. Do we have a motion to authorize the
I'd
executive
move to
director?
authorize the executive director to sign contract with First on compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Do we have a second? Can we poll the vote, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to item letter G, Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA accommodation request.
We've had a request to purchase an assisted listening system, or ALS. I did some work in contacting some folks here at the county, the folks at the city who are the assistive technology experts. I had a recommendation to work with Sound Advice. Well, our county folks don't have any specific experience with the listening system that Sound Advice is recommending. They do, without hesitation, recommend that we work with them. They have basically said they have never received poor advice from Sound Advice. So I did some research ahead of time, and this is really just about what I anticipated. from, for the cost and the type of system that we needed. So I believe that with my independent research, plus the recommendation of the experts, plus the recommendation of the county, we're really on the right path with this. This will be a listening system that is owned by the Transportation Commission, but that could travel to any meeting room that we need in the area. So if you have, our TAC meetings is one of the areas where it's specifically a problem because there isn't a listening system at the wastewater treatment plant. We would be able to provide that listening system for anybody who needed to borrow it for a meeting. I would say any of our partners in the area. So I believe that it would be used more often than just for the TAC meetings. And that's, and that's the benefit to everybody, is that we could loan it when needed. And so that has to do with the fund source that we use to pay for it. So I'm recommending a fund source that doesn't limit the use of this, and that's with our TDA funds. It would be eligible most likely for RPA funds, but then we could only use it for our own meetings for very limited purposes. So I'm just picking a fund source that makes that a broader use, and I would expect that we would welcome loaning it to any of our agencies who needed to borrow it for a public
Yeah,
meeting.
thank you. That makes a lot more sense.
Chair, I'd move to authorize the purchase of the assisted listening system.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
And a second. We've all already heard a little bit of public comment on that item. Is there any more? That's it? Okay. Susan, would you pull the vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just, this, how many people does this accommodate? I saw the thing said 2, is it just 2?
There would be 2 devices, which is actually more than we need for most of the meetings that we have. We could purchase more devices, more listening devices. That's certainly an option, but the ADA requires us to have, I can't remember, but I think it's 5% for 5% of the folks is what the rule is. It could be 2%, I'm not sure. But we are beyond where that means that we would need about 1.5. If you take a look at the largest size audience that we typically have, that's about 50 people. In the most attended meetings that we have are about 50 folks. So certainly we could add more, we could buy 3, we could buy 4, we could buy 10. But the quote that we have today is for 2. And if you were recommending that we add an additional listening
No,
device.
I
Okay.
wasn't, I just want to make sure that we're within our, I assume this is a reasonable accommodation. Is this what we're working on?
This is very definitely a reasonable accommodation, and it's a common accommodation for a device that you need to take to different locations. It's more common in a meeting room such as this meeting room where it's hardwired, but we really need something that's more flexible that can travel with us when we are meeting, at a different office or a different location for a public meeting.
Okay, thank you.
We're purchasing this number kind of on the advice of council also, correct?
Absolutely. Council has definitely recommended that we move forward with this.
Sure.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Susan, could you pull the vote, please?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that will do it for our regular agenda. Moving on to discussion items. Tamara.
Last chance grade, we have a public meeting scheduled for last chance grade in October at a date when I will not be in the community. So you'll be looking for me in that meeting. I'm letting you know right now. They scheduled it at a date, on a date that I will not be here. I will actually be traveling to New York on that date. So, Kevin, do you have the date handy? I have it here on my phone.
It's the 18th. The October 18th?
18th. Yeah, you'd think I would remember that because, I'm not
This
gonna
is
be
a
here.
what meeting?
It's a public meeting about last chance grade,
Okay.
and
It's not the stakeholders group, this is just.
No, this is not the stakeholders group. This is very much a public meeting. There will be some, a panel of folks who are there to report out, answer questions when asked. There will be some display boards, some information. So it'll be one of those broad public information meetings.
Tamara, where is this?
I expect that it will happen at the fairgrounds, but I'm not sure that they've selected a
They haven't
location.
selected a location. I'm
Yeah.
aware of. They've asked me to participate, and I've accepted when Matthew Brady called and asked me to, but this is really at the request of the community. I've been, several individuals, District 3 or otherwise, have been requesting it. I know it's time for the public to have an update similar to what we had 2 years ago.
Right, we talked about this, I believe, in our July meeting is
did.
when we made that request.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Is there any additional updates on last chance grade, the geotech studies, anything else you can give us at this time?
I have no additional information. Do you, Kevin?
Any other questions or comments about last chance grade? Okay,
That I can answer.
that you can answer. Right. Good point.
South Gateway?
South Gateway.
We did receive information from Caltrans that they are moving forward with the South Gateway project. I believe that I've distributed that. I don't have a lot of additional information at that time. I'm expecting to be part of the project delivery team. I have requested that we have a public meeting about that to, I've requested that we have some kind of a public meeting in the area where the South Gateway is to give folks a chance to come out, take a look at what they're planning on doing and moving that forward. We did have a lot of public comment on the Gateway planning documents, the PID document when we developed them, but that was about 5 years ago. And I think that before we build something, we need to go back to the community and just do a check-in and a listening session about, not information giving, but that too, but also a listening session. So if we're making a misstep, like perhaps you could consider happened at the North Gate where we have a business owner saying, whoa, 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 we need to stop this project. That was kind of a mess. I don't want to do that again. I want to be forward-leaning and have a listening session where the public has some input that can also help shape the outcome of the project. So I'm encouraging that to happen, but that project is very, I'm very encouraged that we're moving forward with that, and we're just at the front edge, so I don't have additional information. But it's been a high priority for us since 2011, and I'm really pleased to see it moving forward.
Thank you, Tamara.
Chair.
Kevin?
So, I had some information to share from the project manager, David Lendres. He did mention that the draft project report is scheduled to be completed in January 2018. So that's the ADA job, American with Disabilities Act. So the work that we're talking about at the South Gateway is actually, we're trying to include that work in that job since the job is moving forward. Any work that will not be included in that job would be handled through a smaller project, what we call a minor B project.
Okay.
And he did mention that in mid-January, he would do a presentation to the commission.
Okay.
Very good.
So if you could let him know, that would be the second Wednesday in January.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
So if I might ask a question?
Certainly.
Kevin, it was my understanding that those projects, even within the last 2 weeks, that those projects were going to be kept very separately. Is that a new decision that they are going to be combined?
Well, we originally we had the project moving forward to do the ADA work. It makes sense, cost-wise, to try and include as much work as possible in that project. The work is a little bit outside the limits, but just takes a project change request to allow that work to be included in that project. If it affects the schedule of the project, then there might be some work that would be done separately. But there isn't a separate project at this point to do the work at the South Gateway.
Okay, well, we'll get more information as we move forward because I have different information, but things change and this is early days on the project. So maybe in our November meeting, we'll have something more concrete.
Okay. That's all we can do. Any other comments or questions about South Gateway? No? Okay. Let's talk about 199 Elk Valley Crossroad.
I was at a meeting at the district, an in-person meeting at the District 1 office yesterday, and we were reviewing the draft SHOP, the State Highway Operations and Protection Program funding list for 2017. They're about a year behind in the SHOP for their documents moving forward for a lot of very good, very sound reasons. The state is, not District 1. And so we're going to have 2 cycles of SHOP, one coming right after another or feeling like it does. So right now we're working on the 2017 SHOP, and in about a year, not 2 years, we'll be doing the 2019 SHOP. So things are a little bit behind here. But I did get a draft list and was really looking forward to some kind of indication that Caltrans was going to move forward in some way with the 199 intersection at Elk Valley Crossroad, but that doesn't appear to be the case according to the draft SHOP at this time. So Mr. Tucker has some information about the traffic studies that were done this summer. Matt Brady in the meeting yesterday acknowledged that it's a tough intersection and that he's driven through it. He knows what we're talking about. But for it to be, part of our conversation at the commission meetings, every single meeting since June 2016, and for us to still be making no progress on it is a little bit, frankly, it is discouraging to me. And so I wanted to sort of express my frustration, discouragement about the lack of progress at this time. I'm hoping that something will change given the meeting yesterday, but I don't have any indicators yet. And then Mr. Tucker has some additional information about the recent studies.
Mr. Tucker, you were just thrown into the center ring, sir.
Yeah, so the commission requested Caltrans to do counts during the month of July to reflect, seasonal variation in traffic. So we did counts during the month of July. Then they took that information and did a traffic signal warrant analysis, which includes adding 20 years of traffic volume. So we project volumes in 20 years into the future. Then they take that information and put it into the analysis to determine whether a signal is warranted at that particular location. And so that information didn't meet signal warrants. So that means that's typically the one of 2 ways that we would consider a roundabout or a signal is, one, either safety, 2, operationally. So the signal warrant analysis does a little bit of both of those. According to our engineering staff, it didn't meet signal warrants, and so we can't pursue that as an operational improvement. On the safety side, so Tamara mentioned the SHOP and the fact that there wasn't a project at this specific location. Safety projects are always amended into the SHOP based on when it's identified as a need, and that's based on collision volumes. And so the information that was provided at some of the prior meetings, is still consistent in terms of not meeting the numbers to justify an additional project at that location.
Kevin, do we have incident reports? Is there a spike in accidents there? Is there something to report that's would make us look at this a little more closely in this intersection?
So, yeah, according to the traffic safety engineers, they're not aware of a collision concentration that would warrant an additional project at this location. There's, the work that has been done to date has, addressed some of the concern, at least from a collision concentration perspective.
The only thing that concerns me is people heading westerly out of 199, having gone through serpentine turns, they hit the accelerator and they speed up. And I've seen that happen. And many people are not sure which way to go when they hit 101. And there's a lot of lane changing going on. I've seen that happen too. But apparently it's not at any level of concern. I mean, I'm not hearing anything, there's problems in that area. Is there something there that, this is on the agenda, is this just an ongoing discussion, or is there anything additional scrutiny that we should know about?
Well, the items on the agenda are set by the Transportation Commission. It was
Is there something there?
Request of Caltrans.
The item was put on the agenda, you gave us a date here, Cameron.
June 2016.
And that,
And
at
it was
that time, I think we asked to have it put on there and kept it on there until some sort of
And
resolution.
it's going to need to stay on there too. We still have issues at this intersection. There's no question about it. Obviously,
That's the second what it is.
the statistical data, for some reason, and I'm not sure why, what kind of level of traffic volume we have to achieve in order to say that there's a problem there. But obviously, I don't know what that is. I'm hoping to get some explanation from Caltrans on what level of traffic volume we have to achieve in order to get a project identified as problematic. I thought for sure July summer traffic counts at that intersection would at least give us that ability to say, hey, we're in the neighborhood of having conflict during these peak seasons of tourism here to justify a project. What I'm hearing today is, heck no, it doesn't justify it. The next step that you're saying is that, well, let's base it on collisions. At least from the information that you're probably receiving from CHP, there's not enough collision information to justify some kind of shop project. That's kind of what I'm hearing right now. Yet, there's still a problem at that intersection. So, I will personally call Matt Brady and have a conversation, but I'd like to know from you, Kevin, do you see any other course of action for this commission to take at this point that could emphasize the importance of this intersection, especially to the Haben family that lost a family member at that intersection? That's going to give that family and every other family that drives through there every day going to Hyuchi and Gasky and to Kings Valley Road and to Parkway some relief that their family member is going to make it home, because there's still a problem there. And I don't mean to be blunt, but I still get the calls. I know we've got the near miss stuff happening. What else can we do? I'm literally asking you for help here. What else can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I plan to share this information as I do every meeting with executive staff, management in District 1. And as far as, what, in addition to that, what could be done, continuing to have the conversations with the management. You said you were going to call, the district director. I think that would be a good step. I don't remember, since June 2016, I don't know if the commission has, sent a formal letter. I can't recall off the top of my head if there was a letter sent, regarding this issue. I know that it has been on the agenda and that has been communicated to executive management, but I will once again, bring this issue to their attention.
It would be appreciated.
Thank you. Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yeah, Kevin, it seems to me that when those statistics came out before, there were levels, and that was all put in a report for us. But I think the timing, we thought was off. That's why they did one in July. Can we get that same report in that format like it was before, where I think it didn't have the criteria of where it was, and it was well below. We knew that it would be in, I think it was the winter. It was either in the springtime or
I think,
fall or something. I can't remember exactly when it was done before, and we're pretty sure that that was, that those numbers were going to be low, but we thought that July, August, or whatever dates that they picked would raise that way up. It would be curious, I would just be curious to know where we fell in that, how far off we were. I mean, do you know that information?
Yeah, I don't have the specific numbers. I do know that the conversation I had with the traffic safety chief, yeah, we did notice the seasonal volume increase. And so that was, taken into account in the analysis. And yeah, I can ask traffic safety to put together the signal warrant analysis that, showed
Yeah, they
the
did
turning
that. I know they
volumes
did
and
that on the
what the
first,
thresholds are.
the first counts. And if we could get that same printout so that we could at least see where we're at, and I mean, if we're still way out, then we're going to have an uphill battle, and we'll have to go someplace else. But
that was a report that David Morgan put together and came in person and provided to us. And if we had that identical report with the numbers updated, maybe even a comparison, this is what you saw last time, this is where
Yeah.
the numbers changed.
Exactly.
So we could have identical information compared in a parallel way, I think.
that's what I'd like to see,
Yeah.
if we could.
Tamara, was David Morgan going to be coming up here for a presentation? I know that was on the calendar at some point.
I believe
Got
that
postponed.
I believe that David Morgan has a different position at Caltrans
Oh,
at this
so-
time, so it would be somebody else coming to provide that information.
I thought his title was safety coordinator. Is that what?
His title was Chief of Office of Traffic Safety. Hasn't he taken a different position?
Yeah,
Yeah.
David Morgan is currently in an acting position. He's filling in somebody else's position. It's one of these situations where they're trying to hire somebody, and so it usually takes between 6 to 9 months, and so during that time he will be doing another job, and somebody else will take his place.
Thank you, Mr. Tiger. I guess all we can do is make that request to Mr. Morgan, I guess, would still have the original document to go back to.
Sure.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be very good. I'd be curious to see those numbers myself. Well, there's no action items on discussion items, but I see Ms. Cooper standing up, and I have a feeling she wants to make a public comment about this, so come on up, Ms. Cooper.
Eileen Cooper. Although this is a disappointing result for people expected to get a turn or a traffic circle, a light or traffic. On a positive note, we all attended a very good workshop on safety that was put on by the Federal Highway Safety Administration officials. And they pointed to that the most effective things you can do for safety are some of the least showy and expensive things. In using that lesson, one of the things that they emphasized was the kind of surfacing you have in that area. And I wondered, why don't we get some surfacing there that would slow traffic down? They talked about rumble strips, friction surfacing. What modern techniques, when you come into an area, might help slow traffic down? And then also although the light or the traffic circle was just one element there that would go towards safety. We have a whole Elk Valley design. So looking at the glass part empty and part full, we have a whole design coming in that's going to change the way traffic from Elk Valley approaches that intersection. You're taking away one path. There's a change in lanes there that's going to make, I think, help. I looked at that, and right now there's two roads going in right there, and that's a little confusing. So look at the design of the way Elk Valley meets. Think about surfacing. I really would like to know some recommendations on surfacing that might slow people down. That seems like a very practical thing to do. And then on the South Gateway project, at the TAC meeting, I brought it to the attention of the Caltrans officer, but where Elk Valley meets 101, when you're heading north, and you make that turn, go check it out. Right now, the plan that we have just makes a sidewalk and cuts it off right before the most troublesome part. There's no separation there. The line that
Excuse me,
separates
Eileen.
traffic on
Eileen?
that curve.
Eileen,
Okay.
your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that line, there's no separation between walkers and the traffic. Look at it. There needs to be a separation there. And,
Eileen, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
yeah, so, commissioner comments and reports.
So do we have any commissioner
Well, I
comments and
have one more
reports?
important thing, but I can tell you.
Does this clock not work? Done that.
Well,
I'm just curious.
it does, but the screen was shut down
Oh.
right after the first public comment, so I wasn't able to use it. I was using the one on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
So we have
Mr. Gitlin.
we have one more discussion.
You know, I don't want to make this conversation just...
I apologize, Tamara.
I'm sorry. Would you recognize me? Did you
Go,
recognize me?
yes,
Thank you.
yes, Mr. Gitlin, go ahead.
This discussion on 199 and Elk Valley Road kind of crosses over into other discussions about, as we brought up before, traffic calming efforts. And I was hopeful that at that time we had an issue on the Gateway project, the 101 South, people leaving our community and hitting the accelerator, and it was brought to my attention there were a number of close calls. Perhaps we can have this on the agenda. And the reason I'd asked Mr. Morgan there, because he seemed to be very knowledgeable on these traffic calming efforts. And I don't know if that's still the case, but perhaps we could proffer an invitation to him to come up and discuss, for the benefit of Ms. Cooper also, some of the methods that can be employed to calm traffic down, so we don't have these problems coming up at just about any intersection where speeding is a problem. I thought that was what was going to happen. Is that something our Transportation Commission would consider putting on there, having a subject on having the safety person come up from Caltrans and give us an update on traffic calming efforts and what's been successful and what's not?
I may have made a bad assumption here, but seeing that the South Gateway project was progressing, that in and of itself would increase the safety of pedestrians and motorists alike on that South Gateway. I kind of thought we had moved toward the desired.
Well, I don't know what the outcome's going to be, except that we still get calls from people who are crossing that problematic crosswalk right where the Curly Redwood Lodge is, and sometimes taking their lives in their hands as traffic is southerly going, and it's an intimidating crosswalk. And that led to the conversation that many people don't want to take it. They'll get in their cars and they'll drive into the harbor from the hotels across the street or the restaurants. That's what I thought we left it at. But this project moving forward, is that going to address this discussion of southbound 101 traffic heading past Citizen Stock Road and moving south at up to the 55-mile-an-hour?
It is. I can resend the email that I sent a few weeks ago with the information that I have about all the components of that project. Perhaps it was missed, but that information has been set out. that the ADA project, I'm a little bit confused about where we are in combining the ADA project, which was an area that was initially going to cover from the S-curve to the North Gateway area, approximately Cooper, just in rough areas. And we had asked Caltrans to extend the project limits to include the Gateway because that, after all, has been a very high priority project in our regional transportation plan since 2011. They took a look at doing that, failed to get the additional funding for it, but now it looks like they may be able to make those changes. I'm not sure. But that Gateway project includes that Caltrans is building components of that Gateway project, and they're not building everything that is in our Gateway planning documents because some of those responsibilities cannot fall on them. Some of those responsibilities would be perhaps harbor or county or city, depending on where you were in that area. So there are some areas, components of that planning work, like signage, that would fall outside of Caltrans' jurisdiction or obligation, but they would be making the sidewalks ADA compliant, so that's a pretty significant project there in itself. And they would be having bike lanes and bike designated areas, and there would be a pedestrian crossing, an additional pedestrian crossing somewhere around the area where there's that funky little bridge right now crossing into the harbor. They will find a way to put some sort of a ditch crossing bridge structure there. We don't really know yet. We're just at the very front edge of this. But I believe that our folks in our community are going to continue to express concern at that location up until the point that it's built. So, you know, hopefully we'll have a community meeting before we get too far down the road, so the members of the public who have expressed concern can come and take a look at what is planning on happening. All of you will be invited, so you're better informed also. And then when somebody comes and asks, we'll have that information already out to the public in a way that's presented for the public. But it's very much going to take a look at all of the pedestrian crossings. That's all been information.
I'm just looking for a solution to a situation. I think the harbor has checked in and expressed their concern officially. They were at 2 meetings ago, I think, and that may have happened since the time when we brought this subject up. So there is genuine community concern. Maybe it can be addressed in ongoing communications that the matter is being looked at. But we have a number of businesses and a harbor who've expressed concern about this accelerating speeding problem going south. So I just bring that and continuing to remind our chairman.
Well,
It's an ongoing
I
subject.
think that people have been listening. And I think that's why this is moving forward. Something else I recall in the plan is the islands that are in the center of the street, making the pedestrian crossing easier so they can hit the island and wait and do it one lane at a time. So I think
Mr. Chairman, I don't
we're
think
on our
anybody
way.
disputes it's an intimidating crosswalk there.
Certainly.
Right at
Certainly.
where Fisherman's is and the Curly Redwood Lodge. And it's a crosswalk there that it's intimidating. People generally avoid going through that because of the rapid traffic. So they get in their cars, which is against the Caltrans doesn't want us to do that. They want you walking. And it's part of their mission. The mission statement is to get in, walk, and not drive.
Well, these are all of the reasons why it's been the highest priority, the second highest priority project in our regional transportation plan since 2011, is that we listen to our public. We acknowledge that it's a tough area to cross, but it's still a highway owned by the California Department of Transportation, and we can push, we can encourage, we can write letters, we can have it a priority in the regional transportation plan, and now Caltrans has come to the table as a true partner in finding a way to get it done. And so I would tell anybody coming to the table today expressing concern about it is that a project of some sort, we don't have all the details yet, but a project to address those concerns is being developed and funded right now. So the public was heard, the Transportation Commission prioritized, Caltrans came along when possible to fund the project, and we're moving it forward.
Thank you, Tamara. Yeah, that's the big part of it, is that it's funded, it's coming, so. Thank you very much. And I apologize, I missed your last discussion item, construction debris in the Smith River.
Well, this is a good news story. The construction debris underneath the river right of the Hyuchi Bridge is gone. There is not a sign of it. I don't know, how they got it. Maybe they did get their underwater torch. I don't know how they got it done, but I wrote a letter saying, hey, if all this takes, they said, this takes an underwater torch and we could take care of it now. And I wrote a letter saying, golly gosh, with all of the rivers that we have in District 1, can we not have an underwater torch to take care of these problems? And somebody at
Magically, it
Caltrans
disappeared.
got in there and got it done.
Magically.
And all of it, there were several areas. There were areas that the kayaker in the community noted, but there were other areas too when we started looking around there, and I'm down there taking pictures, and there are kids playing, and there's, it's a little bit scary when you think about it. It's like you start really taking a close look, but we marked all of those areas that we could find, and the Caltrans staff member got out his mask and snorkel. I think he took a little dip. I would want, it's like, who wouldn't? I mean, he said, yeah, I've never been able to swim in the Smith River. It's like, now's your chance. But, and looking just to make sure that we got it all. I mean, let's just take care of as much as we can when we're there. And I'm just really pleased that they did a bang-up job, got it all done. It's a safer swimming area. The construction debris is gone. So, thank you.
And thank you for your perseverance in this. We thank you for that, Tamara. It really is. Okay. Moving on now to commissioner comments and reports. Do we have any other commissioners that have anything to add?
I've got one, but go
Mr.
ahead,
Hall?
Jerry.
I just had a comment. I was really saddened to hear the passing of Elizabeth Burrows,
Yep.
who has been a fixture here for many, many years. Really disappointing. Like I said at our board meeting, she had knitted slippers for my kids, for my grandkids, not my kids, but for my grandkids, and she'll be missed.
Yes, sir. Thanks for letting me follow that one. I would have gone first, but that's okay. Elizabeth deserves all our credits. Like hopefully Kevin to update us on mile marker 10.8, Highway 199. There's been a lot of surface, I'm assuming surface treatments. I don't know. What was described to us originally and being at least attempted to be contracted for last year on 199 was what I thought was something different, but what I see going down on mile marker 10.8, I'm not familiar with that kind of treatment, so I was hoping somebody could help explain that so I could explain it right to my constituents.
So my understanding is, I actually drove by there to go camping recently, and I checked in to see what the status of the project was, and they reminded me that, first we have to pave, and it has to dry for a certain amount of time, and make sure that it's solid before they apply the high friction surface treatment. So it's still my understanding that at that location that there will be applying high friction surface treatment, which is like grip tape, if you know what that is. It's a really rough material. You might have noticed it in some other locations. Cushion Creek area of 101, it's a different color, so it's if you're paying attention, you might notice it.
Do we have an estimated time, hopefully before winter?
Yeah, I mean, they're working, and there was some weather recently, but it should take place before winter.
Terrific,
That's the
thank
plan.
you. Thanks, Chair.
No problem. Any other comments? Okay, we'll adjourn as a Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as Del Norte Local Transportation Commission. And by poll vote, approve and adopt the actions taken by the Policy Advisory Committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion is made, seconded by Mr. Gitlin. Would you poll the vote, please?
Yes.
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 Correct. Yes. Thank you, Susan. With that, we'll adjourn to the regular meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October 11th at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, so